Ba-dum. 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 I was about 6 years old the first time I saw Jaws. My parents had decided to have family movie night. Right? The traditional kid-friendly Disney movies were vetoed. And for reasons beyond my comprehension, Jaws was chosen in their place. Any of you who have ever been traumatized by Jaws know that you're never really watching the movie. You're surviving it. I survived by hiding under a blanket. I made it as far as the lake scene. This is a scene when a good Samaritan in his rowboat tries to help a group of kids fix their sailboat. In this scene, Jaws swims up to the unsuspecting Good Samaritan and knocks him from his boat. Following a brief struggle, we see the Good Samaritan's leg floating across the screen, letting us know that Jaws ate him. The next scenes are of terrified beachgoers screaming and yelling, "Shark!" as Jaws stealthily swims away, disappearing into the water. At this point, I lost it. I threw off my blanket, ran to the bathroom, locked the door, I sat down in the toilet, and I spent the next 20 plus minutes in there because Jaws scared the you-know-what out of me. It's a true story. It was also around this time that Baywatch had become an international hit and decided to really shake things up with the audience by killing off a fan favorite lifeguard named Jill. Does anyone want to guess how they killed Jill off? Yep, you got it. A shark attack. The ocean was a very scary place when I was 6 years old. These experiences made a tremendous impression on my young psyche. Not only did they scare the you-know-what out of me, but they're the first time I can recall being aware of death. I learned that death was preceded by a menacing base, and that it was terrifying. What Jaws and Baywatch failed to properly articulate is the emotional pain that comes with death, the sadness, the grief, and how difficult it can be to heal and move forward after a loss. Other than the childhood deaths of family pets, which were heartbreaking, and the loss of a grandmother I was not particularly close to, my first real experiences with death occurred about 7 months apart from one another. In June of 2009, one of my closest friends, Gabe, committed suicide. I found him when he was still alive. 7 months after Gabe, my dad died unexpectedly. Dad had been through a 2-year battle with colon cancer where every day he fought for more time. Just a few weeks prior to his death, he went in for his annual checkup, at which time the doctor shook his hand, looked him in the eye, and said, "Congratulations, Mike. You're cancer-free. You've earned more time." My dad was promised more time, and it was taken away. Gabe, on the other hand, was up against a life challenge he did not feel he'd be able to bounce back from. For him, time was the enemy, and the prospect of living more time, feeling like he was feeling, was too much to bear. Dad wanted more time, Gabe wanted less. Dad's time was taken away, Gabe took his time away. As I experienced these losses, I was surprised to find the emotion I felt was nothing like what I had learned it would be from watching Jaws. How many of you have lost loved ones? You all know what I learned back then. Death wasn't terrifying. It was painful. It felt as if all the love, happiness, joy, fun, and laughter had been eviscerated out of me in the world at large, leaving in its place painful emotions like sadness and grief. Death was still. Time seemed to stand still, and life went on pause as the world around kept moving. The hardest part about the stillness? Looking at old photos. Within the confines of a frame where the life of a memory once called home, there is now an eerie stillness, a stillness that only death can bring. With the passing of Gabe and Dad, I found myself struggling to find my smile, to be happy, and to heal. I'd ask friends, family, and professionals, how long does this take? How long can I expect to feel like this for? These well-intentioned people would respond back with, it just takes time. Grief has no timeline. You may grieve the rest of your life. It just takes time? Really? And the area of life that has more power than virtually any other to send life as we know it into a nosedive, and the best we can often do is it just takes time? Imagine that it just takes time being an acceptable response for virtually any other aspect of life. You need to get from here to New York tomorrow by noon, so you head over to LAX. You arrive at your gate only to see your flight's delayed. So you approach the agent and you say, "Excuse me, I need to get to New York tomorrow by noon. How long can I expect to be waiting?" The agent looks you in the eye, shrugs their shoulders, and says, "These things just take time. You may be waiting here indefinitely." It probably wouldn't go over too well, would it? Yet when it comes to healing from our losses, the best we can often do is it just takes time. To be clear, grief is defined, according to Oxford dictionaries, as a feeling of intense sorrow. And what they were telling me is that I may feel this intense sorrow the rest of my life. To be perfectly honest, there was a small part of me that didn't want the pain to go away. For one, I felt enormously guilty if I felt anything other than pain. And two, I desperately missed Gabe and Dad. More than anything, I wanted to feel connected to them. Unaware of any other alternative at the time, I began to associate my pain as a feeling of closeness. More specifically, I began to use my pain as a way I'd quantify my love. I would tell myself that the more pain I felt just meant the more I loved. Despite all that, I was terrified that the grief and accompanying pain may be my indefinite future. There had to be an alternative than just waiting around hoping the pain may subside and I might get better. I knew deep down Gabe and Dad would want me to heal, to move forward, and to be happy. But how could I do that when I felt so consumed by grief? Can you all do me a favor and hold your hands up like this? And I want you to just imagine your hand as grief. So really focus on your hand. Notice the lines in your hand, calluses on your hand, the pigmentation in your hand. Just really focus on your hand. And notice that the more intensely you focus on your hand, the less aware you become of anyone or anything else around you. Notice that the more intensely you focus on your hand, the less aware you become of how your left foot feels right now. Yep. But now that I have your attention divided between your hand and your left foot, you may not be at all aware of how your lower back feels against the chair you're sitting in. I see a couple of you starting to squirm. You can put your hands down. Thank you for doing that. What you focus on, you'll experience. Our emotions do not happen by chance, even though it may seem that way. We're creating our emotions by how we use our physical bodies, the language we choose, and what we focus on. Let me give you some examples. Think of the most recent movie you saw. Think of the last book you read. Think of the first time you and your partner made love. Each time you were cued, you felt something, didn't you? I didn't tell you how you're supposed to feel. You felt what you felt because an image popped up into your mind, which you focus on, that in turn produced an emotional response. Now, all this is happening in the supercomputer that is our unconscious mind, which is capable of processing millions of pieces of information per second. Becoming consciously aware of this process is where we find space to create change. What we think about is what we'll bring about. If when we focus on memories of those we've lost and we think, "I'll never have that again, life is so unfair," we're going to experience an entirely different set of emotions and an alternative focus like, "I'm going to make sure I laugh and have fun today because I know that's what they would want me to do." This is what healing looks like. It's recognizing that at any given moment, including this one, we have options available to us in terms of what we choose to focus on and what we're feeling. This was the light bulb moment for me. If my focus was on sadness and grief, it made sense that that would be the sustained reality I experienced. What if my focus was shifted to healing? Now, this isn't to dismiss the painful emotions that we all feel immediately after loss. What I'm suggesting here is there's an alternative to an ongoing focus on grief and grieving. That alternative is a focus on healing. Instead of grief groups, what if they became healing groups? Instead of grief support, what if it became healing support? Healing implies mending, getting better. You're coming to this group to focus on mending versus coming to this group to focus on deep sorrow. Healing occurs, and making the day-to-day commitment to doing something, no matter how big or small, that honors your loved ones. Because how you choose to live your life after someone you love is gone is your opportunity to honor them. And is ultimately what their legacy will become in your life. A legacy of love, happiness, and joy is formed by deciding to live your life in a way that you know in your heart your loved ones would want you to live. Anyone who's ever felt the emotional pain of loss knows that this is easier said than done. So how do we get there? Emotion creates motion. We must get the necessary emotional leverage to create the forward-moving emotion that promotes healing. You see, the largest of boulders can be moved with the right leverage. And the ultimate emotional leverage is found in the honest conversations we have with the loved ones we've lost. Acknowledging what we know in our hearts they would want for us. Which is to not spend our lives sad, suffering, consumed by grief and guilt. But rather it's to heal, to move forward, to love, and to pursue our dreams. Clarity on this presents the opportunity to make the conscious decision to begin to take those first tender steps forward. This is where you can begin to deliberately do the things your loved ones would want you to do in honor of them. Deciding to live your life this way opens you up to forming a new connection with your loved ones, a connection that death cannot sever. Because the positive experiences you have in their honor going forward will be the foundation for the next chapter of your life. Just as they are a part of your joy in life, so too can they be a part of your joy in death. I knew Gabe and Dad would want me to heal, to move forward, and to be happy. I was committed to honoring them, but unsure how to do so with the constant presence of sadness and grief that followed me around like a dark cloud wherever I went. An idea was conceived one day to do 1,000 things I'd never done before in one calendar year, within the context of normal day-to-day life. I called this the 1 Year 1,000 Challenge. And the goal was to do mostly simple, everyday things, along with a few bucket list ones thrown in there. I had 2 goals for this. To find my happiness in honor of Gabe and Dad, and to inspire others to do the same. By the end of 2011, I had done 1,022 new things I had never done before. Some of these included learning how to play a song on the violin. These are my teachers. Visiting the Colosseum in Rome. That was a total bucket list one. And my absolute favorite, creating International Sunrise Sunset Day, which has since evolved into an annual event where every year on September 12th, people from all over the world share a photo of the sunrise or sunset in honor of the loved ones they've lost. To date, we've had thousands of people from more than 110 countries, and all 7 continents participate. We even got one from Antarctica. That was a total goosebumps moment. As 2011 came to a close, I was happy. But more importantly, I'd become aware that my happiness was not something I waited around for, hoping it may find me and I might get better. It was something that I had created. Its creation was born out of the commitment to live my life in a way going forward that I knew that Gabe and Dad would want me to in honor of them. Healing and happiness happened because my focus was shifted from grief to healing, from sadness to what they'd want from me, from my own suffering to a commitment to honoring them. A wise man once said, "Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get." I carried on with this new way of living until November 30th, 2013. On that day, my best friend Paul was killed in a car crash. As with other losses, there's the immediate rush of painful emotions in the form of shock, disbelief, sadness, and grief. I don't know about you, But one thing that's always been especially difficult for me when losing someone is dealing with the emotion of the imagined future moments being taken away. The imagined future moments are those special moments you imagine spending in the future with loved ones. Moments like making a toast at a wedding, celebrating birthdays together, or in our case, strategizing for the zombie apocalypse, which was seriously a favorite pastime of ours. We spent a lot of time doing that. We'll talk about that later, though. In the emotional tornado that comes tearing through after loss, the imagined future moments are swept away, along with the happiness and joy you may feel in the present. In between my snot sobs, which there was a lot of, there was also this ever-present feeling and sense of knowing about how Paul would want me to live life as I move forward. Before the 1,000 challenge, I spent over a year of my life sad and consumed by grief after the loss of Gabe and Dad. I did not want to go back to surviving through life that way, carrying around the heavy burden that is grief. Nor did I want to have to come up with another 1,000 things to do to create my happiness. It takes a lot of time to do 1,000 things. In the weeks after Paul's death, I began to ask myself questions like, how would Paul want me to live? What would Dad want me to do? Who would Gabe want me to become? The answers are always the same. To smile, to laugh, to love, to help others, and to pursue my dreams. I believed I owed it to my loved ones to get up and begin living my life in a way that I knew they'd want for me. And in honor of them, I did that. You know what happened? I began to feel better. My healing began. I could smile, I could laugh, I could love. I remember one day someone asking me, Jesse, how are you not sad all the time? Aren't you grieving? I replied by saying, I'm not focused on grieving. I'm focused on healing. I'm focused on honoring Paul by living my life in a way going forward that honors him. Death is not terrifying like it was in Jaws. Death is sad. Death is painful. Death can also be an opportunity that none of us wanted, but an opportunity nonetheless. An opportunity to choose to live your life in a way going forward that honors the loved ones you've lost. Since Paul's death, I've lost 8 additional close friends and family members, many of them in this last year. Each time I felt sad, I felt grief, I felt pain, but more than anything, I feel their love. My life is about honoring them. They are the reasons I'm standing in front of you all today. This message isn't just mine, it's ours. Thank you.